strong.
Hey everybody, it's LJ here with Choice Crafts with a Z, and I'm going to show you how to make custom coasters using water slide, ceramic tiles, and epoxy. First things first, you need a printer. I have a HP OfficeJet. You print out your water slide just like you do any other copy that you want to make. Just make sure it's set to glossy. I did use Cricut Design Space to make my design, and I set it as a print to cut image so that it didn't have all the outlines from a regular cut image. However, I am clearly not using my machine to cut it because it only allowed for 2 of my 3.8 squares to fit. I'll show you what I mean in just a second. These are the different designs that I made, and I'm going to double a couple of them up, and I'm just showing you how Cricut put 2 to a page, and when I go to double it, it was going to use way too many sheets for water slide. Instead, I took a clip of each square, placed it into a Word doc, and sized each to about 3.8 inches. They're not going to be perfect, but close enough for the tile that leaves a little white on the outside. So a longer process, but I use less materials, so it's a win for me. This is where you will need either glossy or matte clear. That's the key, clear enamel spray to spray down each of your pictures. I'll organize them in this box because I don't have a garage and I don't want to mess up my plastic grass on my patio. So I sprayed them down once with the clear enamel and I let it sit for about 60 seconds. Then I hit it with another coat and let it dry for an hour. As I was spraying, I saw a shadow on the box and it happened to be a little butterfly. Scared the mess out of me, but it was cute and I'm glad I caught it on camera. So as you can see here, I have all of mine sprayed down with 2 coats of the matte clear enamel. You can see it is very, very dull looking, but once you put the epoxy on, you can't tell that it was ever matte. This is when you'll need a pan of water, at least an inch to cover the tile. It's big enough to cover the entire thing. On your left, my right, I have my finished product and you'll see how smooth it is. You can still move water bubbles out even as it starts to dry. Just make sure it doesn't sit for too long. So now I'm going to take my first tile piece covered again in 2 coats of enamel and I'm going to submerge it into the water. Once you do, you are going to hold it down because it will start to curl up on you, especially if it's a smaller piece of paper. Eventually I started to use other things to hold it down instead of my fingers. Like I have metal clips here that I just placed on top. You don't want to use anything that'll scratch up your image, and you can let it go maybe after 15 to 30 seconds depending on what kind of paper, what brand you're using. So I'm watching it lift in the corner, so I'm going to go ahead and take it out. I'm going to use this, couldn't see where it was, and just pick it up because it will start to slide off of the paper. So these are just my Cricut tongs or whatever they're called. And I'm going to place it on top of my tile, JK. I'm going to wet my tile first. It doesn't need to be fully submerged in the water. It just needs to be a little damp, otherwise you're going to be picking bubbles out for the longest, like I did with my black one. Get the salad off that I had earlier. And just run your finger across. You're going to place it on top a little further down because you're just going to slide that paper off. So there is the end of my paper here. I'm going to hold it in the corner. Well, let me hold it at the top. So I get a little leeway at the bottom and I slide the paper out. The slower you go, the more you're able to control the bubbles underneath. And voila, c'est fini. I'm going to dab. This is like 2 pieces of paper towel. Okay, this piece of salad keeps coming back. That I rolled up into a square so it fits the entire tile. And you want to just hit it a little bit because you don't want to get it too dry. Otherwise, you can't move the picture anymore because it's dry. So as you can see, I have completed a couple more of my tiles. I'm letting them dry for a bit, watching for air bubbles. And while I'm doing that, I just want to show you what it will look like if you did not put a protective covering over your water slide paper. This was a design error on my part, and I didn't notice until after I printed. The P was way too close to the pearls, so I made another copy of the pink and black plaid. And I'm just going to dip it in and show you what it looks like. As I dip it in, you can almost immediately see where the ink is starting to lift off of the paper. And when I lift it out of the water, the ink runs into my pan. So I'm obviously going to change the water, but I just want to show you what it will look like if you don't cover it. This is how I set up all the tiles in my craft room. They are sitting on top of Dixie cups, some in a box, some on silicone, and some in a wooden tray, just to hit them all at once because epoxy is toxic. I'm just going to slap it up there, about 3 scoops with my little spreader thing that came with all the epoxy silicone pieces. And I'm going to take my fingers and just hit each corner. Then I'm going to go in the center and just make sure it's a nice thin layer. You don't want to goop up too much, or 1, it's going to take forever to dry, and 2, it might be a little uneven. Make sure you hit up the sides as well. You don't want it going out to whoever you're giving it to as a gift or to your clients and it doesn't look smooth on the edges too. The underside isn't important because we're going to cover that with a piece of cork. So now that I'm done spreading the epoxy with my fingers, I'm going to do a quick blast over the tile with my heat gun. And this just helps the epoxy that's been sitting there spread a little more, and you have a nice even layer of epoxy. You don't have bubbles in it, and it just helps it to cure just a tad bit faster, not a lot. It has been at least 12 hours. I let them sit overnight. They have a couple of baby craters in them, but not enough for me to sand it and put another coating of epoxy on it. So I'm really proud at how they turned out. The next step is to cover the bare bottom with cork. Voila! I found these on Amazon and they're adhesive cork pieces, which is perfect for tile. You just peel the backing off and it's nice and sticky. You take your tile and just place it in the center. There's going to be a little on the sides left out, and that's fine. So you don't really see the cork once you place it on a table, but you do want to press down and make sure that adhesive is in the grooves of it all, just so you know that it's actually stuck. With that last piece added to each of the tiles, they will all be complete. I really love how they turned out. Again, I had little mini craters on the top, but not enough for me to put another coating of epoxy on them, so I will be shipping them out to my client as soon as possible. So while we were discussing what her tiles will look like and she was picking a design, she did explain to me that she was going to pass them out to women in her group just as thank you gifts and appreciation gifts. So to make it easier for her, if she wanted to pass them out as is, I am going to put them in tissue paper with my business card, each and every one of them, folded up so that it is nice and neat. So when she takes it out of the box, all she would have to do is pass them out as is. So I fold it up, and as a finishing touch, I just put my business sticker to close up the tissue paper, and it'll be complete. Well, that's it, guys. You just learned how to make custom coasters with water slide and epoxy. If you want to learn how to make other things, drop them below in the comments and I will create a video on them. Thank you for watching my first video. If you like to see more, make sure you subscribe. Check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Choice Crafts with a Z.